It's good to be here tonight.
Yeah, great.
Got a couple of fun things to share. Quite an epic journey. It ended about as crazy as it started. Uh, what's up, Mr. Bo? Bo, you don't text and drive, but good to see you driving, get a little view of the expressway. But yeah, it's good. Steven's going to be a little bit late as well, so I'm going to try to keep an eye on I guess, the front door, you might call it, whatever it is. I guess it's the front door to the tea party as we get started. But so tonight we're going to catch a couple of videos. Hi, Jean. Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for being here with us. So we had shared a video before from the, what is it called? Wudong Wellness Academy. And so we're going to do some 8 brocades with him, which is more, there's some instructional stuff. Hi, Cindy. I was going to share, and then we're going to do some Japanese tea ceremony stuff, and then I'll share some of the highlights from my trip. But I realized that the tea ceremonies that you get when you're a part of a cruise ship package are a lot different than what the real tea ceremonies are all about. So I've got a couple of really good videos selected that we can watch and talk more about that and give you guys an updates on some of the highlights of the trip, including the tea ceremony that we saw in Korea, in South Korea, in Busan, and then the one that we had in Japan, in Shizuoka, which was different, but both were very touristy. Designed for bringing in lots of people, as you can imagine, but very beautiful and elegant nonetheless. So we'll get a chance to walk through that. But I always like to start with gratitude. So we'll kick off with some gratitude. Jean, why don't you kick us out? What are you grateful for tonight?
Oh, so much. Just thrilled that the nice weather has finally hit Maine. We had snow 2 weeks ago. We've got beautiful, perfect weather now, and it's been lovely to be out in it.
That's awesome. And Jeanette, what about you?
I'm grateful as well to get over my jet lag, which took me longer this time than any time before, but I'm settled in. I'm grateful to be back home and into my routine. So, what's
That's
good
awesome.
about going away?
Where were you coming from?
A cruise in the Mediterranean, Italy, Spain, and France, which was lovely. It was wonderful. But the jet lag hit me this time coming back. Boy.
Yeah, totally get that for sure.
Mhm.
Cindy, what about you and your +1 there? What are you guys grateful for today? You should be able to unmute.
There we go.
There it is.
I'm grateful for our skies today. Oh my gosh, we had beautiful blue skies, tons of rainstorms running in and out, awesome cumulus clouds, just beauty. I took several pictures of the sky today.
That's awesome. Have you guys caught any of the Yellowstone series?
I haven't watched any of it. My daughters told me they didn't think I would like it. I don't like any violence at all.
Yeah, the country was apparently founded on it, but yeah, it's just fascinating. The more, whatever, modern day version one is more tame, but still plenty of other violence and craziness in it. But the one about 1883 and 1923, it's like you take for granted what was actually going on. So it's always been this way. And it took some courage to be able to move across the country in a stagecoach and wagon and no electricity, no cell phones, no GPS.
Yeah, could you imagine? I
Com
can't even imagine.
Completely different world. Jack, what about you? What are you grateful for tonight?
I'm grateful for, believe it or not, the love in the world, and just grateful for all the different interactions I've been having over the last few days and the tremendous uplifting discussions I've had.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm grateful. It's interesting. I haven't had much jet lag, even though it was 30 hours to get home. So woke up at 4:30 Tokyo time to take an Uber to the bus that was an hour and a half to the airport, and then flew from Tokyo to Seoul and Seoul to LA, and then LA to Atlanta to then take a 2-hour Uber drive home after that. and didn't sleep at all. So I caught up on Yellowstone series. But it was good. But good to be here with you guys. A lot of stuff to kind of share. And I know
Working.
hopefully Stephen will be in a little bit, but he was also had some stuff going on. And Bo, appreciate you. And I know that you're grateful for lots of stuff. So just keep driving safe and we'll get everything else started here. Yeah, so much to share that I don't even know in terms of what you would actually call a highlight. Nagasaki was one, just again about talk about violence and this bomb and everything that happened, and learned so much about American history while I was there. And in particular, I didn't really, maybe some of this stuff like you hear about in whatever class somewhere and then just goes way back in the back of your memory bank while you're dealing with life, but I had forgotten that Nagasaki was the second choice. Like there was another city that was supposed to get hit first, and Nagasaki was what, two or a couple of days after Hiroshima. So within just very few short days, we had taken out 120,000 people in Hiroshima, and then Nagasaki was 75,000 people killed and another 75,000 people injured after all that. So we went to that war museum, and that was tough just to be able to go through that and just get a sense for what really happened in this bomb. And especially having fairly recently watched Oppenheimer, kind of help put all that stuff into perspective. But we'll dig in, and I'm excited to share these videos with you guys tonight, learn a little bit more about the 8 Brocades. The reason I want to share this one is that I took a Qigong class on the ship, which I was just super curious to see what it was going to be like. And it was a Chinese woman teaching this. And I've heard Li's Qigong referred to as either bubblegum or Disney version of Qigong. And this was, I don't know what the other, maybe more even kindergarten than that, but it was fascinating because there was probably, it was in this big, I guess, bar area, but just a lot of seats in the front of the ship with like windows all around. And there must have been like 300 people crammed in there. Just reference to more and more people, I think, are more intrigued by Qigong and starting to understand what it is. So I thought I'd share a different version of the 8 Brocades from Master Gu. So anyway, welcome everybody to the Wild Tea Party. This is a space where tea and movement converge to bring harmony, connection, and vitality to our lives. Together we embark on a journey inspired by the timeless wisdom of tea and the flowing energy of Qigong. Thich Nhat Hanh offers us this guiding reflection. Drink your tea slowly and reverently, as if it is the axis on which the whole world earth revolves slowly, evenly, without rushing towards the future. Live the actual moment. Only this moment is life. In this spirit, each session, we will not only explore the mystery, mythology, and health benefits of a specific tea or herb, or tonight, in this case, a specific ceremony, but also weave in the gentle practice of Qigong. Just as tea invites us to pause and savor life, Qigong helps us cultivate presence and energy through mindful movement. Together, they create a synergy that nourishes both body and spirit, offering balance and clarity and transformation. We're honored to have you join us tonight on our shared journey as we celebrate the simple yet profound acts that ground us in the present moment. We invite you to bring your curiosity, your open heart, and perhaps in the future, a friend or two to share this unique blend of tea and Qigong. And together we will steep ourselves in the wisdom of nature and the flow of life. Tonight, so we shared one video from Master Gu previously. And so this is, so I have access, I've signed up for, I don't want to say everybody's Qigong courses, but a lot of people Qigong courses. And I always think it's good to get different perspectives on how people see things and how they communicate different topics in particular. So I'm going to share this. So there's going to be 3 kind of videos back to back. One is more an introduction that I found to be very interesting in terms of what the 8 Brocades are all about, but also just the exercises and the names. And then I also have the PDF that comes along with this course that I'll put as well that you guys can take a look at, but a lot more just insights than I think that I've been able to get or capture before. So I will share this and we will get going as long as I can remember how to use 2 screens. Here we go. Share. Clicking buttons. Awesome. Can you guys see my screen okay? Yeah, awesome. All right, so make this a little bigger for everybody to be able to see. And just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it and a thumbs down if you can't, so I can adjust audio if needed. Gracias.
At the beginning of the Ming Dynasty, two grand projects happened. One is 南修武当, one is 北建故宫. Nan, south, 北, north. While Wudang in the south was built, Summer Forbidden City or Beijing City in the north. So here we see many 圣制, which means the saint's order. The Ming emperors, they attached such importance about Wudang Mountain. Did those emperors come to Wudang personally? Actually not. But with 钦差大臣, literally means the envoy sent, arranged by the emperors with the emperor's 圣制. In a Chinese feudal society, when people hear 圣制到, here is the 圣制, that exactly means the emperor himself comes. Old people would kneel down and something like the slogan of 吾皇万岁万万岁, our emperor, you long live, something like that. Then the 钦差大臣, the one arranged by him, would spread the 圣制 and read the specific content. So these 圣制, these saint words, are all about Wudang Mountain, how to build the national project, national architecture. Morning cleaner. Ling Guan Dian. He's said to be the uncle of Wudang god. Back then, the Wudang god was a prince. He made a decision to come to Wudang. The uncle said that if you should succeed in obtaining immortality, I would do whatever you ask me to do. Later, the Wudang god here in Wudang, after 42 years, achieved immortality and become the main god here in Wudang. Then the uncle just remained his promise, keep his promise. Then he was arranged to be the guardian god because he has a fierce look. He has a good heart. He has keen eyes in detecting, in finding bad from the good. So he always with a whip. Those who are not good persons, be bad to the parents, would be swept down to the mountain. Yeah. Okay, we are all nice persons, so we are allowed in. Since this hall, the main deity is the Wang Lingguan, so in the middle is this deity. But who are the other two? So this one is regarded as a Taoist doctor. What we do in the morning, comb the hair, some stimulation about the ears, eyeball, rotate. These minor stuffs actually were recorded in his book. So we Chinese people, the practitioners all regard him as Yao Sheng, the saint of medicine. The right one is nobody but Zhang Sanfeng. Zhang Zhenren. See, this is his surname, Zhang Zhenren. Zhenren means true person, true man, the true man. That's his name. Normally in practice, we means to obtain like true, to become yourself. So the practice, the process of practice is also say 修真, to obtain 真, the true, by cultivating. If you achieved, then you can be called 真人, the true person. This is the crane. This is the celestial crane. We say 仙鹤. So now we have arrived at the Golden Summit, which is at above the sea level 1614. Some say 1612, some say 1614. I think 1612 is here. 1614 is to there, Golden Summit. This is a rarely seen sunny day among this is the rainy season. So we are very lucky to come up at such a sunny weekend. Now, early morning, we have arrived. We are among the first group of people coming up the Golden Summit. This is, as you can see, the two Chinese characters, 金殿, which means golden hall. We call this golden hall or golden temple. In the Golden Temple is consecrated the Wudang God. Actually, one of the four deities in relevance of the four different directions, namely the green dragon for the east, white tiger for the west, the red bird for the south, and the Xuanwu for the north. So Wudang God is exactly from the northern god.
You said earlier that the emperors didn't come here, but they spent a lot of money and hundreds of thousands of workers to make this place. So is it that they built temples that they didn't visit?
Yes. Wudang architecture, the construction started as early as the Tang Dynasty, which is more than 1,000 years. But the high climax happened in the Ming Dynasty, which is 600 years ago. The Ming emperors, for some reason, attached very much importance of Wudang Mountain. So they ordered the magnificent, the huge construction. It takes 300,000 people, soldiers, craftsmen, the manual workers, over 10 years, starting from 1412, ongoing 10 years. So as a result, there are so many buildings on atop the peak, in the mid-slope, in the valley. Maybe they take form in temples, palaces, halls, bridges, pavement, stone pavement. The materials, chiefly the stone, wood, and also metal, like here. So it quite reflects the level of the Chinese Asian architecture of the 15th century. So the UNESCO experts, when they come visit the Wudang for the inspection to decide whether Wudang can be on the World Cultural Heritage Site, he exclaimed, "The brilliant Chinese history is still in Wudang Mountains." This quite reflects the wisdom of Chinese Asians.
It's here. Very good.
It was like breathtaking, all of that. I thought I heard him say 300,000 people over 10 years to build all that stuff. That's crazy. So that is really just the beginning, and a lot of the Qigong comes from that area. And then this is his introduction into the 8 brocades.
Now here we are in a space between the Golden Temple and the Parental Hall. I'm going to demonstrate 八段锦气功. 八段锦, together with the Yi Jin Jin, 5 animal qigong and 6 word healing qigong, the very best, the 4 best qigong forms. So 八段锦, literally, it's 8 pieces of brocade, which I don't know why it says this way. But what is important is how you do it. The 8 sentences, you will do 8 different movements and how beneficial it is good for our health. Totally, it sounds like a poem, which is as follows: 两手托天理三焦，左右开弓四色雕。调理脾胃避单举，五劳七伤王后桥。摇头摆尾去心火，两手攀足固肾腰。赞拳怒目增力气，背后七颠百病消。
There will be a test where you guys are going to have to repeat that back at the end. So hopefully you guys got all of that. So I have all of this in the PDF. I don't know why this just sits on here for so long, but I'll put that PDF in there so that you can see it. Also has a lot more detail. But the next video
Now,
will show you
we will do
very quick
one by one.
in terms of how they go through it. So if you guys want to stand up, we can follow along. He goes through it pretty quick, but at least it'll give you guys some good insight into the different style. There's a bunch of different versions, I think, of the 8 brocades, but this one's very, very Chinese, as you might imagine. All right, let me get this, make sure.
八段锦气功一，两手托天理三焦。Inhale, exhale. Now, last. 左右开弓四色雕。1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Finish. 调理脾胃避单举。Ready, go, stretching. Ready, stretching. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Go, finish. Number 4, 五劳七伤王后桥。Look back from left, front. Now, right, back, front. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Go. Last one. 摇头摆尾去心火。Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Now finish. 两手攀足，固肾腰。Go up, down, back. Grab. Hold on for a moment. Go up. Number 7. 战拳怒目，增力气。Lastly, 背后气颠，百病消。来 ，clear. That's all for 八段的气功。Wish you good luck in practicing. Wish you live long and live well.
So pretty fast pace with not a lot of really clear specific instructions. Some of them that I've seen, there's a guy that I follow, we'll maybe do his maybe in the next couple of weeks, where all of those, like where you're looking back, I don't remember if Lee does on all of these or not, but like a lot of them, they encourage you to stand up on your toes at the same time. And then when you're looking back, to stand up on your toes. And then the way that I've heard it described, when you're doing the punching, it's supposed to have this very fierce, like angry look. And then you are supposed to make sure you circle everything, and then you're pulling in all of this, and then you smile on the way back in. So you're like punching out all of this anger, and then you gather all of the chi and pull it back in with a big smiley, happy face. So a lot of different nuances for some of those, but I'll show you this and I'll share this with you guys so you can have it, just so you can see the more of those details, because like I said, he went through that stuff pretty quick. Hi, Anna Maria, nice to see you here tonight. So this is the guide. So it goes through a lot of it. And of course, Lee doesn't get into any of this Chinese for good reason, but I think especially since this is a source, it's good to have all of this, what it really looks like. And so it talks about here the different organs that you're working. So the idea was with the 8 brocades that you were working these 8 different organs and different parts of your body. So the triple warmer, then the lungs, the spleen and stomach, the upper neck, heart, kidneys, liver, and then the whole body. And then there's a link that I'll put in here. You guys can click on this too. That's got a really nice blog post on more of it. But then this is more 2 hands support the sky, drawing the bow to shoot eagles, raising the hand on each side, so separating heaven and earth, looking back from left to right. So what he's done is taken literally the translations. So where Lee has distilled some of that, and Montauk Chi and other people have put it into more of a easy to understand language. But underneath here, it's really interesting, gives you all of the Chinese characters and the pinyin, and then what that all means. So a lot more sort of details and insight, and then gives you some really good insights under here. We've talked about this a few times. He always says that in Taoist practice that you are your own doctor. And so it's helping you to diagnose and then prescribe that, how you get this woven into every part of your day. So just some really insightful information and some more resources down here for you guys. So hopefully it wasn't too whatever superficial and didn't go too fast. There's just a lot of good information in there. But I always like being able to look what other teachers are saying, and especially in his case, where he's actually at the birthplace of a lot of this, teaching more and more of that. So as we move on to the tea part of the Wild Tea Party. So this one, and if you guys have questions about any of that, the 8 brocades, I'll answer as many as I can. And you guys might even have more insight in some of that stuff than I do. But these other videos, and I looked to try to find some stuff. I recorded the one from the Japanese tea ceremony. So we went to South Korea and had a Korean tea ceremony, which you never hear much about tea from Korea. They don't grow a lot of tea. There is some tea there, but a lot of what they have is like corn tea. So the tea that they had there wasn't delicious, but the ceremony and the surroundings were just beautiful. It's the first time I'd ever been in. I was in South Korea twice in my life, once to go to that tea ceremony and then once to sit in the airport in Seoul to catch the connecting flight to LA. So I don't really have much Korean experience, but it was completely different, of course, than the Japanese tea ceremony. And this video that I'm going to share with you guys about the Japanese tea ceremony is fairly detailed. This guy talks fast, but I think that it's interesting in thinking back on when we talked about the matcha. He gives you a lot more information, not just about the tea, but really the relevance and the relevance and the elegance of the ceremony and where it started and how it started. And like I said, we had a very touristy version of this where people were sitting on benches around it. Typically, you'd just be sitting on the tatami on your knees, and there's a lot more sort of formality to it. So I thought that this is a better way to help you guys understand more of what the Japanese tea ceremony is all about, as well as really helping to give you more of the experience, but all of the sophistication and the intention that goes into everything. So typically the rooms, I don't remember in this video if they talk about it or not, but typically the way that you enter the Japanese tea house is that the door you have to crawl under to get in. And supposedly, I don't know, I wasn't there, but a lot of this, they say, started during the samurai time, and they had to take off all of their armor and everything and then bow to get in. And when you get in, everybody's at the same level. So there's not one person is higher than another person in terms of their significance or their relevance in the group. And so it's a way to honor. There's a lot of bowing and a lot of quiet introspection, but every piece that they have is very intentional in what it's doing. And the rooms are very sparse, usually just these tatami mats. And usually the only decorations at all are usually a banner and a flower. So it just makes it very, so the idea is really appreciating each one of those parts and pieces. So I'll share this with you guys and then we can talk about it when we get done. So let me figure out, make sure I'm sharing sound again. All right, so just give me another thumbs up, make sure you guys can hear it, okay? You can see it okay? Awesome.
The Japanese tea ceremony is something that both interests and confuses people when they first visit Japan. With so many steps, utensils, and concepts, the Japanese tea ceremony is both fascinating and difficult to fully understand. In this video, we're going to break down what the Japanese tea ceremony is, but more importantly, what it represents. We highly recommend watching this video before you take part in a tea ceremony of your own so you can know what to expect. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for future tea videos. We have hundreds of tea videos on all sorts of different topics, but for this video, we're going to focus on the Japanese tea ceremony. Without further ado, let's get started. First, what is the Japanese tea ceremony? The Japanese tea ceremony is essentially a practice that uses matcha tea as a way to promote a positive relationship between the host and their guest. While there are some complexities and nuance to the Japanese tea ceremony, its core values lie in simplicity. All you need to do is step into the Japanese tea house to experience this simplicity. The tea room is sparsely decorated with nothing but a scroll and a flower arrangement. There are a few objects around to prepare the tea, but these are not the focus. The main focus of the tea ceremony are the 4 principles, wa, ke, se, and jaku, and the objects simply serve as a way to demonstrate these principles. Among the objects used in the Japanese tea ceremony are the matcha utensils, which we will discuss next. As the tea master enters the tea room, she will present the utensils to be used in the Japanese tea ceremony. There are 9 main tea utensils we will be discussing today, each of which has its own use and significance. The fukusa. This is the dry cloth the tea master uses to clean off the utensils before preparing the tea. The significance of this is practical as well as symbolic. As a sign of respect, the tea master is cleaning the utensils in front of the guest so that they can be assured that they're clean. Natsume. This is the first item to be cleaned and purified by the tea master. The natsume is also called the tea caddy, and it's how the matcha powder is transported. The matcha powder is often sifted beforehand to remove the clumps, and then it's brought into the tea room to be prepared. Chashaku. This is the bamboo teaspoon used to scoop the matcha powder into the bowl. The chashaku is simply designed, but it's the perfect tool to scoop powder out of the natsume as it has a more vertical design rather than a typical horizontal design. The tea master uses 2 large scoops of the chashaku, which comes out to around 2 grams of matcha powder. This is the perfect amount for a bowl of matcha tea. Kama. This is the iron pot used to heat the water for the Japanese tea ceremony. A perfect square is carved out of the tatami mats, and then it's enclosed by a flame-resistant material. Beneath the iron pot is hot coals that heat up the water throughout the tea ceremony. Hishaku. This is the bamboo ladle used to scoop water out of the kama in order to prepare the matcha tea. The hishaku has a long handle to reach the water within the iron pot, and the tea master pours the water slowly so it cools off just before it's used to prepare the matcha tea. Boiling water is too hot to prepare a good tasting matcha, so it needs to be cooled slightly through this technique. Matcha bowl. This is the clay tea bowl used in the Japanese tea ceremony, and it's also called the chawan. It is made from a heavy clay, and it often has a beautiful pattern on one side. The bowl is preheated beforehand, so it keeps the matcha warm throughout the tea ceremony, and the higher walls of the bowl make it easier to prepare the tea. Matcha whisk. This is perhaps the most famous of the tea utensils. The chasen, or bamboo matcha whisk, is carved out of a single piece of bamboo, and the 100 small bristles move through the water quickly to aerate the tea. This tool has been used for hundreds of years in the tea ceremony, but it still works better than any modern tool. Kensui. This is the wastewater bowl used in the Japanese tea ceremony. Sometimes water is used for things other than preparing tea, like heating up the matcha bowl. This water needs to be discarded, and the kensui is the most graceful way to do that. This makes it so that the tea master doesn't need to leave the tea room during the ceremony. Finally, the chakin. The chakin is a separate cloth used by the tea master to clean off the matcha bowl. While the fukusa is kept dry to clean off the dry utensils, the chakin is used to clean off the wet utensils, like the bowl. What are the steps in the Japanese tea ceremony? The Japanese tea ceremony requires many small steps that are repeated in careful order. To learn these steps, tea masters must practice nearly every day, and there are even schools dedicated to learning the Japanese tea ceremony. Today we're going to just cover a few of the broad strokes and why each step matters. Step 1. Bowing. Before the tea master enters the room, she will stand at the entrance and bow to the guests, at which point the guests are expected to bow back. This is a simple introduction and a demonstration of respect. Mutual respect is a very important part of the tea ceremony and something we will discuss later in more detail. Step 2. The purification of teaware. After the tea master sets down the teaware, she will begin to purify it. This is done to demonstrate to the guests that the teaware used to make their tea is clean and pure. The fukusa is taken out and unfolded and later is used to clean the tea utensils, starting with the natsume and then the chashaku. Step 3. The preparation of the matcha tea utensils. After the teaware is purified, the tea master needs to prepare the utensils for making the matcha tea. She will take the fukusa and open up the iron pot to gather some hot water. This hot water will be poured into the chawan in order to preheat it. The matcha bowl is made from thick clay, so it absorbs a lot of heat. If it is not properly heated beforehand, the matcha bowl will absorb much of the heat from the matcha tea and cause it to get cold much more quickly. While the water is still warm, the tea master will then take the matcha whisk or chasen and dip it gently into the water. She will then give it a quick whisk around in the water. By soaking the matcha whisk in water, you make it more pliable and less likely to break. When this delicate wood is dry, it can be quite brittle and easily broken. After the matcha bowl and matcha whisk have been prepared, the water is poured out of the matcha bowl into the kensui and the matcha bowl is cleaned off using the chakin. The tea master is now ready to prepare the matcha tea. Step 4. Preparing matcha tea. Finally, we get to the most important part of the tea ceremony, and that is the preparation of the matcha tea. This is seen as the main event of the Japanese tea ceremony that everything else is building up to. First, the tea master will take 2 large scoops of matcha powder from the natsume and place it into the matcha bowl. She will then scoop less than a full hishaku full of water into the bowl, making sure to pour it really slowly so it has a chance to cool off before it touches the matcha powder. Finally, the tea master will take the matcha whisk and gently scrape the sides of the tea bowl to mix the matcha in, and then begin to whisk up the tea in a zigzag motion. By whisking the matcha tea in this way, the tea master is able to create a light foam on top, which gives it a smoother consistency and taste. When the matcha bowl is finished, the tea master sets the matcha whisk aside and turns the bowl so that the design faces the guest. Step 5. Drinking the matcha tea. Now comes time for the guest to play a role in the Japanese tea ceremony. While the guest's job may be far easier than the job of the host, there is still some tea ceremony etiquette to be mindful of when drinking the matcha tea. First, you should bow when the tea is presented to you to convey gratitude without speaking. You can then take the bowl of tea and place it onto your tatami mat before drinking it. The bowl can then be held with 2 hands, and you should turn it so that the pattern or design on the bowl faces the other guests. This is seen as a sign of respect, allowing the other guests to view the most beautiful part of the bowl as you drink. After you are done, you can place the bowl on the other side of the tatami mat where it was presented to you. Step 6. Wagashi. The wagashi or Japanese sweets are another aspect of the Japanese tea ceremony in addition to the matcha tea. These are made with simple ingredients and often used to convey the theme of the tea ceremony. They are meant to complement the flavor of the matcha with the sweetness of the wagashi smoothing out the bitterness of the matcha. It should be eaten whenever it is presented to you and should be finished so that the host knows that you liked it. What are the principles of the Japanese tea ceremony? The steps and utensils used in the tea ceremony seem to get all the attention. The principles are what is most important. These principles are wa, ke, sei, jaku, or harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. We will briefly cover each of these principles and how they are represented in the tea ceremony. Harmony. Harmony is the positive interaction between the host and the guest. This is an ideal that people should always strive towards, not just in the tea ceremony, but also in the outside world. The matcha tea is not a solitary pursuit, but something to be shared between the host and their guest. Respect. Respect is the ability to understand and appreciate others. The guest should be thinking of the host throughout the tea ceremony, and the host should be thinking of the guest throughout the tea ceremony. Inside the tea room, all people are equal, regardless of their status outside the tea room. The respect for people is conveyed through bowing and deference in the tea ceremony, and respect for objects is conveyed through the treatment of the matcha utensils. Objects of different values are treated the same, just as people of different outside status are treated the same during the Japanese tea ceremony. Purity. Purity is the ability to treat oneself and others with a pure heart. The concept of purity in the tea ceremony is not only demonstrated when the tea master purifies the matcha tea ceremony utensils, but before the guest even enters the tea room. Before entering the tea room, the guests must purify their hands at the sukubai and also purify their hearts and minds. Only after they have left their worldly thoughts and worries behind are they able to enjoy something as simple as a bowl of tea in silence. Tranquility. Tranquility is achieved when the other 3 principles are realized. This is a sense of selflessness, and while it is the ultimate goal of practicing the tea ceremony, in a way it is still just the beginning. The principles need to be constantly practiced to maintain tranquility, and the matcha tea ceremony is the way to train. How can you make your own matcha tea ceremony? A lot of tea drinkers like to make their own matcha tea ceremony at home. While it is possible to get all the utensils we mentioned earlier, there are 3 main ones that are most important. The matcha whisk, matcha bowl, and matcha spoon are used to prepare a bowl of matcha tea that tastes just like the matcha tea ceremony. This is a good way to practice some of the principles of the Japanese tea ceremony, even if you're not in Japan. Even though you may not see it being used in the Japanese tea ceremony, you also may want to invest in a metal sifter, or furui, to sift your matcha powder. Matcha powder will automatically form clumps as it's exposed to the humidity in the air, and this can make it so that your matcha tea doesn't mix as evenly. If you really want to get the most out of your matcha tea ceremony, this extra sifting step can make all the difference. If you're looking for the best matcha set to create your own matcha tea ceremony, look no further than this matcha bundle here. This bundle includes 21 different types of matcha tea, plus.
So the rest of it, he basically goes through a sales pitch, and I thought it would be cool to put a link in there for their set, and they're sold out, so it doesn't really help us. But I think that hopefully that gave you guys some more insight into it. I think it's a little awkward in terms of like he's sprinting through what he's talking about, so it almost makes you a little anxious. He's talking so fast to go through all of it, which is ironic because a typical traditional Japanese tea ceremony takes almost 4 hours to go through. And there's all sorts of different sort of parts and pieces to it. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about that, and he basically glossed over a lot of the parts and pieces, but hit on all of the main pieces, But one of the things that I heard when I was in Japan is what is it called? The fukusa, the cloth, that when they're doing all of this folding of it, that it's a very intentional way. And you always hear in Chinese too, and Japanese, a lot of significance for directions. So north, south, east, west. And the way that I've heard it explained is that when they're folding it and they're paying attention to it, they'll hold it in the corner. And the corner that represents the north is your ancestors. And the one that represents the south is your children. And the one that are on the east and the west are your friends in the community. And so each time that they turn that, they're trying to be very intentional, focused on their parents or their grandparents or their children or their friends as they go around it. And then the other thing that I thought was very interesting, a lot different than some of the other stuff that we saw, like with Anoa and trying to get the water to go fast to agitate it. They're trying to go very slow to cool the water as it goes down. So hopefully and what the length of time that it has taken that ceremony to be evolved into what it is now. And then combining that with the video that we watched about the matcha tea preparation, where they can only, even with the machines, that they have to go so slow, that's only 40 grams an hour that these machines can actually get out. And as he said, it's 2 grams per cup. So if you think about how long it's taking to be able to get all of the tea, and there's a significant matcha shortage right now in the world, partly because if you guys have seen, it's matcha flavored everything. Matcha flavored ice cream and cookies and Kit Kat bars and everything. And while it's still technically matcha, there's a lot of shortcuts that a lot of these people take. And as we saw in the one video, the guys that are doing the very high ceremonial grade are doing one harvest per year. Other people are starting to do 2 and 3 and even 4. And they're just and that's why it's interesting. I've never really liked matcha flavored things because it always has this bitterness to it. But when you have really high quality ceremonial grade that's been prepared that way, and he did give away one of the secrets of it is using that metal sifter to really get it to be really fine powder, just like grandma used to do with the sifter in the kitchen every time she make apple pie. There's a reason around all of that stuff. So anyway, I thought I'd share that and happy to go through any of that stuff, either the 8 brocades or any of that stuff about the tea ceremony you guys want to comment on. And then whatever time we have, I'll share some other highlights from our trip to Japan. So with that, I'll open it up for whatever you guys, so you can just unmute yourselves and just holler out however the spirit leads.
Todd, I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that I heard it said that Taoists are their own doctors. And so, do you know if traditional Taoists ever seek medical attention?
I can't speak from a traditional Taoist point of view, but I know that in very rare occasions, like emergencies, right? So surgery and some of that stuff, but even like my silly arm, there's so much that they rely on with more of the traditional Chinese medicine. And the TCM there's classic Chinese medicine, which I've learned is different than TCM. And TCM was put together during the Cultural Revolution, where they took different parts and pieces of it, the condensed version. But a lot of those guys, what they're really focused on is preventing illness in the first place.
Okay.
And then balancing that. But I imagine if somebody's got a really bad infection, especially knowing that there's highly advanced medical solutions nearby, that they would probably take advantage of it.
But do you think maybe not all of this, like I call it searching, that Western medicine encourages us to do, like the mammograms and all of it? I refer to it as searching, but I wouldn't assume that traditional Chinese medicine or they would do that in China. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think so much of it is there's limitations to all of it, right? And there's some really good books, like one of it, I don't know if I have it in here, but called The Web That Has No Weaver. And there's some other ones that really compare, like taking very similar or taking the exact same symptoms and then presenting it to a Chinese medicine practitioner and to a Western doctor, and how they go about trying to diagnose it. And usually in Western medicine, they're just trying to get rid of the symptoms, whatever it is, not really trying to get to the cause, but just trying to eliminate the symptoms. So I think a lot of it is they're really trying to diagnose what's going on in the whole body and where is this really coming from. So they'll talk about, and Jenny's very good at all this stuff, right? Is you've got too much wind or too much fire or a lot of that stuff that medical doctor have no idea what you're talking about. And I think what's interesting is here, like you said, a lot of people will search for answers, and then as a last resort, then they'll try the Chinese thing. But they go through everything else because we just want everything fast, cheap, and easy, right? We just want the pill. We just want to get rid of whatever, get rid of the headache, try to figure out what caused the headache.
Thank you. Yeah, that's insightful. And then I had to ask Gina where she lives in Maine.
I'm in Elliott, Maine, right over the border from Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Okay, we were in Topsom for 10 years.
Oh.
So when I hear Maine, I'm like, Maine. Thank you.
That's awesome. I've only been to Maine once. I went to that Portland and did some consulting for a gelato company there. It was just beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. But you guys are in a pretty beautiful place too.
Oh, us?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't trade down.
Every day. We did. We traded up. We have a lot more sunshine.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I can share some of the stuff about our trip, but anything else on either the 8 brocades or the Japanese tea ceremony?
Just that I was really excited about it. My love of matcha. I got right on and Googled a whisk, and I'll let you all know how it works out.
It's crazy. Definitely recommend the sifter parts because that'll make sure you don't, because there's nothing worse. There's a lot of things worse than, but it's not quite as enjoyable if you've got clumps of matcha when you're trying to drink it. You want to have it be like frothy and creamy and foamy, and the way they say that it should be when it's done right. And there's a whole art in to be able to get it to do it that way, but it should be like an espresso, right? You got a really nice crema or cream foam, whatever, on the top of it that you can enjoy. And some of the Japanese tea ceremonies, I know that they do a different type of tea, like during the 4 hours, like in the very beginning, and I forget the term for it, Bo would know, but he had to bounce. But instead of just doing 2 scoops, they do 3 scoops. So it's very thick and very heavy and not necessarily gritty, but more dense than it would be otherwise. And then the second time, they'll just do 2. And then a lot of times, depending on the type of ceremony and who's leading it, then they will have the guests serve each other. But the other thing that they pointed out that I know is true, and I've seen in the other Japanese tea ceremonies that I've been in, is that usually in a lot of those Japanese bowls, like the one that I have that is not up here, doesn't have a pretty side and a plain side, but most of them do have the pretty side. And so that's a big part of the ceremony, is that when the host presents it to you, they present it with that pretty side out. And then you turn it around so that it's no longer facing you. Now it's facing the host when you drink it. And then you're not supposed to put it down on the tatami mat until you've finished it. And so
Wow.
just hold it and drink the whole thing. So every part of it is very elegant. And like I said, we had the Love Boat version where we try to get in a bunch of people and give them the whatever, the quick version of it. But I think that to me, it's always fascinating just how those things have developed over time and how that's one of the cultures that is still there and still relevant. The other thing that I had learned before this trip, but that it wasn't until that ceremony's been around for a long time. And it wasn't until like sometime in the mid 1800s that women were even allowed to participate.
Wow.
And now there's a lot of the women that are leading it, that are the hosts, and everything that they have to go through to even just get the kimono on. And I forget what that little whatever banner, the kind of the belt buckle thing, the really pretty silk thing that's in the front, like just the ability to fold that, to get that to look nice. And you'll see people walking around Japan wearing that stuff just during the day. And to me, it's what are they doing? But it's if they're going out for a nice night on the town, they'll just get dressed up instead of wearing a black tie to go to the event. They'll wear the kimonos, the men and the women. And they're usually not walking in their Air Jordans. They've got some sort of the sandals on that have the wooden soles on the bottom of them. And Sulio and I are always amazed at just how clean Japan is. Like you can't find a trash can to save your life. It's basically pack it in, pack it out, and they're very specific about keeping everything very clean. And just the respect and that culture is so completely different. Especially here when we're just a hodgepodge, we're a melting pot of everything. So it's very difficult for us to have any of those sort of cultures all the way through. So I'll share a couple of highlights from our trip. And there's no way it was 12 days at sea. So the first day, and I think I shared maybe in Mighty Network. So we flew from Atlanta to Calgary, had a 2 hour layover, got on the plane, flew for 4.5 hours, and then had to turn around and go back to Calgary because there was supposedly like a redundant air conditioning system or something that had failed, and they weren't allowed to do oceanic flying if the other system wasn't working. So we had to turn around and go back, spend the night in Calgary, then finally made it to Japan. And then we were there, we're supposed to be there 2 days early, got there 1 day early. And then when we finally got onto the ship, we had to sit in port for 2 days because the sea was so rough. They didn't have permission to pilot the boat out of the harbor to get it out onto the sea. So the first 2 days were there. 12 days at sea after that, went to, I don't even remember how many cities we stopped at, but a bunch of cities, and so many different ones along the way. And finally, at the very end of the trip, we came back and it ended the way that it started. We had a lady that was offering to water our plants for us, and she had sent us a text message and said that she couldn't get into the house. Like the garage door keypad wasn't working for some reason. So called the locksmith and trying to do all this stuff like from an airplane with bad text messaging and all this, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And they didn't want to. Apparently the guy could just, because we didn't have a house key was the problem, because we just used that keypad all the time, and we didn't think, we should maybe have a house key outside in a little stone in the garden or something. And so the only way that they could fix it was to destroy the lock. So they didn't want to make that decision without talking to us, because it would have to be rekeyed differently, because we weren't even sure where the house key was in the house, to be able to tell them once they got in to key it to the same thing. Only to find out. And so then I had to get into the house with a ladder to get onto the second floor to sneak in our bedroom window that thank God I had left unlocked, to find out that the power was out in our house because I had fraud on the credit card that was on auto pay, and the charge didn't go through. And they said they had tried to call me when I was in Japan. So it was just hilarious. So I guess part of my gratitude is that Sulio and I seem to have those experiences all the time and never bothers us. Just go with the flow. It's just another thing. But it's ended in this sort of the weird way that it started. But I'll just share a couple of quick things with you and then let you guys go. But so a few things on here. So this was literally from the cruise somewhere in the sea off the coast of Japan, 4:30 sunrise. So I only made that effort once to get up that early, but it was absolutely well worth it. Just unreal. And I had heard one time I had a chance to go visit the Navy to go look at some technology and kitchen and that sort of thing. And I heard at one time that your line of sight on the sea is 12 miles. So I'm assuming that little line at the end there is 12 miles. But so that was certainly a highlight to be able to see that. And it's when you're out there and you can't see land and all is that it puts everything into perspective. Then one of the villages we went to has these straw roofs. So this is they call it the UNESCO like World Heritage Site, something like that, where they've got these beautiful buildings that they've preserved. And they had some guys there that were actually repairing them. And so it starts with this straw, and they're very well designed for insulation. Apparently there's only a very few people that even know how to even make this a reality any longer. But there was an entire village of those that we got a chance to see. So that was exciting. And here you can kind of see more of the houses. So there's a whole village, and there's still people that live in this village. And of course, a bunch of tourists that go through there. So that was exciting. This was the Korean tea master. I have her whole presentation on a video that one of our friends that was on the trip with took, who had a much better perspective than I did, sitting there in between two bodies. But you can tell very similar sort of dress, but this is a lot more elaborate. And this was a Buddhist temple that had, I think they told me there was 3,000 Buddhas that were in this room and these little statues all around in Busan in South Korea. So that was exciting. Then in Busan, we went to this crazy fish market. If you see here, says 63, 64. There's 377 stalls in here. Apparently the largest fresh or live seafood market. But you can see in here kind of a lot of shells, a lot of weird animals I'd never seen before swimming around in here. And this is at the very end of their day. They were closing up. Most of the shops were closed, but there was still a bunch of ladies in here that were continuing to clean up after the day. That was super fascinating. This was at the Atomic Bomb Museum, and when I first walked by these, I thought this was all fabric. When you look at it from a distance, it looks like fabric, but it's all origami. And so all of these are made, and in Nagasaki, there's a whole sort of peace movement based on, of course, the bomb and hoping that something like that never happens again. But just some beautiful images that way. This was a clock from Nagasaki that stopped right when the bomb hit. One of the things that I guess we remembered is that the bomb detonated 500 meters above Nagasaki. And so there's a bunch of data in the museum about how many people died from the heat, how many people died from the radiation. But this was one of the few pieces that were at the epicenter of everything that survived. And they kept it because it marked exactly the time that the bomb went off. Here's a life-size model of the bomb that they called Fat Boy. Just crazy interesting story. This was in the port of Nagasaki, so it's recovered. Very beautiful city, beautiful parks along the harbor there as well. This is my new favorite Japanese word. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but kuchi sabishi means when you're not hungry, but you eat because your mouth is lonely. So I thought that was a good one. I've had that condition way too often. And what else? Oh, I'll play this. I don't know if you guys are familiar with pachinko, and this one in particular was probably 20,000 square feet of just row after row of these. And when I tell you that it's loud in there, this is not, I'm not going to increase the volume. This is just the volume when you walk in there, and it's this loud the whole time. Literally could not talk to Sulio, and she was sitting in one of these playing it, and I couldn't talk to her without like literally having to bend over and talk loudly into her ear. It's so loud, and people go in there for hours and play. And apparently it's because they're just very lonely. We did get a nice view of Mount Fuji off of this harbor, so that was a big highlight as well. And I don't know, I've got a gazillion other pictures. Oh, this was a cool tea house, teeny tiny place that is literally about a hallway width, very teeny tiny, that I had to, every doorway that I've ever gone in Japan, I seem to always hit my head because they're all cut very low. But this super teeny tiny doorway to get in, and then this is how wide the store is. So you can just tell life size. With lots of tea lined up along here as well. And then this was more of a Western. This is a company from, it's Twinings is the parent company, but all these different canisters of tea with basically every flavor and type of tea that you could imagine. So I'd ordered some Sakura Sencha, which is the Sakura, the cherry blossom flower with the Sencha tea. So that was just her making it. So a gazillion other pictures and photos that I could share with you, but it was a lot of fun, and it feels very good to be back home sleeping in my own bed. So anything else you guys want to talk about tonight?
Todd, can you tell me what sencha tea is like?
Cindy could tell you that she doesn't particularly like it. It's one of the most popular teas, so it's very popular. It's one of the more high quality teas. And so sencha is usually, if you heard of like first flush or second flush Darjeeling, sencha is from the first flush. So it's a very bright green tea, very good quality sencha tea. All of the Japanese teas, and maybe it's just whatever the power of suggestion, they all taste like fish to me in a sense. Like they always have this sort of like fishy kind of flavor or aroma to them. Maybe it's because it's an island and maybe it's around there. But it's a lot different than a lot of the Chinese green teas, and where the Chinese green teas are usually more mellow in a sense, like the dragon or Longjing cha. Sencha is a little bit more full-bodied and usually more caffeine. So more energy. And then what happens when they add the sakura flowers to it, it just gives it a more sweeter essence. So it makes it less bitter or astringent and just a little bit sweeter. But it's really good. Rishi tea is a great source. There's another company. Let me just see if I can find. These guys sent us some really nice gifts. With Holden Qigong, we ran a game with our team. And the prize was that they got a really nice Japanese tea and some other work. And these guys did such a great job. And when they shipped the tea to everybody, they put a handwritten note to everybody that said, "Congratulations on winning the contest," whatever it was, and put their names on it. And then they included a little origami crane with all of those orders too. I'll find that and send that to you guys as well. But those guys have really high quality. The big challenge with a lot of those is really, I'll put this link in here, but because there's not a lot of people doing it at that high end. I'm going to try to have these guys come on in the next couple of weeks. 2 weeks from now, Jennifer Gardner, who I think we've mentioned a few times, who's a cancer survivor and used Qigong to help her through her recovery. She's going to come on in 2 weeks and help lead some Qigong and tell a little bit about her story. But this company here, Tizumi, these guys have a lot of really great Japanese teas and beautiful teaware also. So here, let me throw this into chat and you guys can play with this one. Where's the chat? Oh, there it is. So those guys they've got the bamboo whisks and all of the stuff that you can ever hope for. Here, let me pull this over here. But they've got the tea and the teaware, and they've got other incense and lifestyle stuff. But if you just go to their tea shop, there's senchas here. Gyokuro is one of my favorite ones. Ujicha is a roasted Japanese tea that's very good. A lot of people that are trying to get into tea, but maybe they have still a coffee affection, is a great transition because it's got more of a full-bodied flavor. Gyokuro is really dark green and helps you can see how much darker that is than say, and what I love about these guys, they tell you, I think all of their teas are certified organic, but it tells you the different types of cultivars that they use, Samidori, all the different types of tea that gets the unique flavors. But if you look at the difference between that and the sencha, sometimes is a little bit less green, probably a little hard to see on this screen. The other one that a lot of people really is this genmaicha that has this roasted rice in it that's got a really wonderful flavor. And a lot of times if you go to a Japanese restaurant, they'll use this genmaicha for the tea that they serve with that. But those are another really good company to check out for Japanese teas.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty new to tea. Went to the tea shop in Portsmouth and bought a white paradise chai, I think they call it, and a black tea. But they all have flavoring like ginger pieces or mango pieces in it. So I'm guessing that's probably not the best way to do it. Get the pure tea and put your own stuff in, or
there's no judging. It's whatever tastes good to you.
tastes delicious.
Yeah.
I was used to the stuff from the grocery store, the tea bags. So
yeah,
it was a step up for me.
Yeah, it's great. I think as often as you can, if you can at least experience what the raw tea is, so just a loose leaf tea by itself, And I love to just mix different things all the time and just see. It's a challenge being able to find those flavors that you like. And so to me, if there's a tea that you like and it comes from the grocery store, of course you should just keep drinking it. But even when you get into some of those that have the same name, like chai, there's so many different flavors of chai that are out there. Some have a lot more ginger, some have a lot more black pepper, some have a lot more cardamom. So it's really just different. And whatever the mix, some people put chocolate in it. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. But it's what I really enjoy about tea is that it's not only the tea, the story, and the slowing down and all of that, but that there's so many different flavors. And it's like we've talked about before. It's same with Qigong. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
It just keeps going and going. So it's a lifetime pursuit.
Mm. And one off-topic question. I love the artwork behind you. Are those African dancers or what is that?
So
I can only see
I'll
part.
share that on this call. So I'll show you the whole thing. I got that in Jamaica. Did I tell you guys this story before, Cindy? I don't know if I told you guys this. So I have 4 boys. I have 4 men, used to be boys. I have 4 sons. And every time that when they would graduate from high school, I took them on a trip for a week anywhere they wanted to go in the world. The only criteria was they had to take me. So we would go together. And at that point, Alex, son number 2, when he was a senior in high school, went through a huge Bob Marley phase. So we went to Jamaica to the reggae festival and walked around, and that we bought it just as a canvas, as a rolled up canvas. And part of the significance of that one in particular is that we got there early. Show started at 9 o'clock. We got there at 8:30 because we figured it'd be packed. Got there at 8:30. Nobody was there. We're wondering, like, did it get canceled? What's going on? Walk around the different shops. There's a lot of like jerk chicken and curried goat and all these sort of food stands around. But we decided that we wanted to set up camp since we got there early by the sound booth, because that's usually where the best sound is, in the middle, back up on the lawn. At one point, I got up to go use the restroom, and when I came back, my son Alex was standing there, and there was 2 Jamaicans sitting next to him, and I could tell something was weird. And I said, Alex, what's going on? He says, Dad, this guy says we owe him 500 Jamaican dollars. I was like, what? And he's apparently this guy had given him a spliff, a marijuana joint. And Alex said, no, I don't think I can take that. Put it down on the ground. And the guy said, you owe me 500 Jamaican dollars because now it's contaminated. I said, what? And so I was like, we're not going to give you 500 Jamaican dollars. Are you insane? And so next thing I knew, his buddy peeled off behind him and was standing behind me. And then the guy that was demanding this $500 is on the other side of my son, Alex, pulls out this knife that was probably about this long, but twice as wide, like a legitimate knife. And I was like, all right, I'll just give this guy 500 Jamaican dollars, which at the time, I think the conversion was like $8, some US or something. I just give this guy the money and couldn't figure out how to delicately just pull one 500 Jamaican dollar bill. So I ended up pulling out a few more. And he's like, now it's 1,000. I was like, no way. So you could take your $500. And if you want to fight about it, let's fight about it. So eventually he just took the 500 Jamaican dollars and left. But that's the souvenir from that trip. So there's a long story about that,
Yes.
about that poster.
It's beautiful.
So I guess they were probably based on African dancers, but it was painted by one of the guys who was there selling that. And there was a few other ones that we got, but that's the one that I actually brought back and actually had mounted and framed. Yeah, none of the other guys on our trips, we didn't have any crime on the other ones, just that one was the only one. But it was fun. Yeah, thanks for asking. It has a special place, and we both survived the concert. And the crazy thing is, we left at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was still 3 more acts that hadn't been on yet.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was unreal. Anna Maria, did you have a problem trying to log in through the Mighty network?
I don't know what I don't know what happened. and I don't know which platform I was using. I was using the same one that I do every week.
It's funny because I have the same issue when I tried to log on earlier, and I had to actually go to Zoom to log on to open this, because every time I would click the button, the screen that should pop up to give me the screen just disappear.
Exactly. I had the same problem.
Okay. I'll reach out to them and see what's going on, because that shouldn't be that way, because I couldn't even get in. So I had to go in. So I don't know how you other guys got in, but you guys.
I had to go back to last week's history and I clicked on that.
Smart.
I'm not sure how else to get in. No, I'm not very capable with my iPad. So I'm like, oh, how do I even join now? So I just went to my history.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think what I'll start doing is sending out an email.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just because even for me, it's like, all right, what? Because I have different Zoom accounts for the different businesses too.
Right.
So there was 1 week, and then 2 weeks ago when Stephen couldn't log on, we
Yeah,
had a
well, I'm
whole other
wondering if a lot of people just couldn't get on.
bunch of issues. Yeah, it
Well, it's-
wouldn't be life if it didn't have some sort of hiccups along the way.
Well, it's too bad they missed all your wonderful trip information. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put together some more of it, and especially the Korean ceremony was very elegant and very beautiful, and a different sort of arrangement of stuff in terms of the way that you do it. And they almost always have some sort of treat or snack as well. And you're supposed to eat all of it. If you don't eat all of it, it's like you're telling them you didn't like it. So you're supposed to make sure you eat whatever it is. But yeah, I think more and more that we think about what Qigong is going to evolve into, it seems like it's going to be a travel channel.
Or you get them.
Awesome. Really good to see you guys tonight. Thanks so much for being here. And I will definitely send out an email. I'll send out an email, just plan on sending it out the day of, a few hours before, just make sure everybody has easy access. Otherwise, feel free to reach out anytime.
Okay. See you
Awesome.
next week.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Bye, guys.